Hey historians, today we are talking about resisting slavery. This is Unit 3, Civil War and Reconstruction. Note 2, in your notes packet, it looks like this. All right. Abolition movement. The word abolition is one of our vocabulary words that we're reviewing that we used in 6th grade as well. You may have read and talked in 6th grade about Ralph and Emily Gray, who were abolitionists here in Minnesota in this era. But the abolition movement was made up of blacks and whites who wanted to abolish or end slavery. The Constitution did not prohibit slavery, but abolitionists believed that there was a higher spiritual law that made slavery a sin in the eyes of God, and therefore they believed it was a crime against humanity. Their ideas were that just because something is legal does not make it moral or right. Okay, so in your notes packet on page 5, at the top, there are the 2 vocabulary words for this set of notes, and the first one is abolition movement. Would you please highlight or underline, or both, 3 context clues that help us understand the definition of abolition movement? I chose people speaking out against slavery as my 3 clues. The American Anti-Slavery Society was started up in 1833 by this gentleman, William Lloyd Garrison. He campaigned with others for the freedom of slaves, and many abolitionists worked in many different areas, helping runaway slaves. They would write newspaper articles, they would publish journals and pamphlets, they would hold meetings and rallies and dinners, trying to get the word out about slavery. So, the abolitionist movement is growing. It's a movement of people who want to abolish or end slavery. News spreads about slavery through speeches, rallies, newspapers, and books. If you were living in this era, people didn't really travel on a regular basis. Only super wealthy people got to do vacations. And they were tending to go on vacations to places in Europe like London or Paris or something like that. If you're growing up, though, here in rural Minnesota territory in the 1850s, you probably had never met an African American. You probably never really saw what plantation life would be like. So you didn't give a whole lot of thought to slavery, and that's one of the reasons the abolition movement existed. They wanted to make sure that people were aware of the brutality and the horrors of slavery in this country. Okay, so one of the most famous abolitionists is this gentleman. This is Frederick Douglass. He was a former slave. He worked with the American Anti-Slavery Society to spread the truth about slavery. He had been taught by he had been a slave when he was young. He was actually the slave owner's wife kind of played favorites with him. She taught him to read and write as a child, which in most southern states was actually illegal to teach a black child or black person in general to read or write. When he's a young man, he decides he's done being someone's slave and he's done being owned, and he escapes. But later on, he goes, saves up his money and goes back to the plantation that he ran away from, and he buys his freedom. And that was a really brave thing because the slave owner could have said no. So he kind of was risking a lot to go back and purchase his freedom. But because he then got his official paperwork saying that he is a free man and he was no longer kind of on the run, he was able to get a lot more accomplished. He published his autobiography. In fact, he published many autobiographical books about his life as a slave. The first of which is called The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave. And then he also started an abolitionist newspaper of his own called the North Star, and that's significant. The title of that is significant because if you were going to seek freedom, you would use the North Star as a guide to escape to the north and to free territories and states. So in our notes on page 5, we have Frederick Douglass as one of the important people listed. And so you're going to fill in that he's an escaped slave, he's a speaker, he published abolitionist newspaper, the North Star. In the movie we watched, Brother Future, one of the characters, Josiah, kept meeting secretively with another person named Denmark Vesey. Denmark Vesey is not a character. He's not fictitious. He is actually a real person who existed. And in 1822, authorities in Charleston, South Carolina, learned that Denmark Vesey was planning a large slave revolt. So he was arrested and hanged along with 30 other people. In 1831, 9 years later, Nat Turner in Virginia led 70 other slaves on a brutal rampage across Virginia, killing 57 white farmers. I believe it was like a 2-day, basically killing spree, and ultimately he was captured and he was also hanged. Okay, so in our notes, we have Nat Turner. He led a rebellion of slaves, killing 57 white people in 1831. Now, if you were a white person living in the South, stories like this made you incredibly afraid. Okay, the Southerners were already fearful of free black people stirring up trouble among slaves. Because of Denmark Vesey and Nat Turner's rebellions, more Southerners became even more terrified, and pro-slavery leaders used these events as kind of proof that, see, this, black people are violent and belong as slaves, even though the reality was that they're lashing out and acting in violence because of the way that they've been mistreated, the way that they've been sold off, and treated as less than human beings, robbed of their humanity. So this panic, though, causes fear across northern states, so they passed more strict, what they call slave codes or black codes, that were laws specifically controlling black people, free and slave. Rules like you can't have more than a certain number of black people congregating together out in public, because they might be planning something, sinister or wrong. So that meant even going to church as a black person, you had to do it in secret because of these kinds of black codes or these strict laws. If you wanted to leave the plantation, you had to have special paperwork or permission proving that you had permission to travel outside of the plantation. If you were a free black person, you always had to have your proper paperwork on you, proving that you were not owned by someone else. Okay. So, Denmark Vesey had the unsuccessful revolt in 1822. Nat Turner led a bloody rebellion in 1831, and because of these rebellions, southern states started to panic and pass more strict laws against black people. Thousands of runaways escaped to free states and into Canada with help from the Underground Railroad. Now, we know that this is, you may have read about this as a kid in elementary school. There's a lot of stories about this woman as well, Harriet Tubman. But the Underground Railroad was not literally underground, and it was not literally a railroad, but it was a secret network of people that provided transportation and safe houses where runaways could hide. A number of conductors or guides that worked with the Underground Railroad and led people to safety. They were risking their lives to help other people escape and travel to freedom. Harriet Tubman had used the Underground Railroad in 1844 to get her own freedom. Her husband, she left him behind on the plantation. He was too scared to go, and she decided that she wasn't going to let him determine her future, and so she left and made it to safety in the Underground Railroad. But she returned more than 20 times between 1850 and 1860 to lead more than 300 other slaves to freedom as well. Okay, so in our notes, we're going to identify Harriet Tubman as the escaped slave and famous conductor on the Underground Railroad. Most slaves couldn't read a paper map or a list of instructions, and that was really dangerous to have something written down on paper, because if it got into the wrong hands, well, then you had some big problems. So they had to be way more creative in how they were going to spread information about the Underground Railroad. So many songs and spirituals had hidden messages telling the route for escaping slaves. Some women sewed messages into quilts that were hung out at homes along the route, so it looked like you were just hanging out your laundry or airing out your blankets to get some nice sunshine or fresh air, but really you were basically hanging out a sign that gave people instructions on where to go next. Lanterns and candles left in windows offered a sign of safety and help along the way. So in the notes, we're going to highlight 3 context clues that help us understand the definition of the Underground Railroad. I chose secret network, help slaves escape. This was just a little video we watched called Follow the Drinking Gourd, and this is one of the examples of a spiritual that was often sung by slaves out in the fields working, but they were basically sharing the information on how to get to freedom in the North. This one's called Follow the Drinking Gourd. Others like Wade in the Water were also pretty popular as well. So the Underground Railroad is a secret network of free blacks and sympathetic whites. They helped thousands of slaves escape to free states and into Canada. They used signals and codes to alert travelers of safety and danger, and secret codes were woven into things like songs and quilts to help secretly give directions to freedom. The most famous piece of Civil War era literature was a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was first published in anti-slavery newspapers in 1851, and each newspaper would have a little bit more of the story, and you had to wait till the next edition was printed to read the next, to find out what happens next in the story. But in 1852, they compiled all of the editions and they put it into one published novel. And so it became a bestseller, especially in the North. The South banned it. They didn't like it at all. Author Harriet Beecher Stowe, she was 40 years old. She was a wife and mom. Her husband was an abolitionist pastor, and she hated slavery. When the Fugitive Slave Act is passed in 1850, we'll talk more about that in our next set of notes, but when that is passed and it requires anyone, even in the North, to return runaway slaves back to their owners, Harriet Beecher Stowe was really upset by that. So she kind of gets activated and kind of triggered a little bit and inspired to write this story about a slave named Uncle Tom, who's on a plantation in the South, and people basically tune in to each edition of the anti-slavery newspapers to read more and more about what happens to their favorite characters, and then they get pretty riled up with the ending. I won't give it away in case someone is inspired to read this story. Okay, so in the notes, please define Harriet Beecher Stowe as the abolitionist author of Uncle Tom's Cabin. Okay, nothing brought the horrors of slavery home to Northerners more than Mrs. Stowe's novel. This gave them a peek into what life on a plantation in the South may have been like, and no other work had stirred such powerful emotions about slavery. In the South, Harriet Beecher Stowe and her novel were hated and cursed. Many of the Southern states banned it from being bought and sold in their state. In the North, Uncle Tom's Cabin made millions of people who hadn't thought much about slavery before more upset and angry about the cruelties of slavery in the United States. Okay. This is John Brown. He's a zealous abolitionist who traveled from state to state looking for jobs and working to oppose slavery and help slaves run away. After the Kansas-Nebraska Act is passed in 1854, we'll talk more about that tomorrow as well in our notes, or not tomorrow, but in the next set of notes. Pro-slavery supporters came into Kansas territory from Missouri. We called them border ruffians because they were coming in to stir up violence and troubles as settlers were voting on whether or not to allow slavery in the new territory of Kansas. John Brown took revenge in Kansas by killing 5 pro-slavery settlers. 3 years after his raids in Lawrence, Kansas, and Potawatomi, John Brown tried to organize another raid, this time in Virginia. Brown recruited his 5 sons-in-law, and they decided to raid the federal arsenal in Harpers Ferry, Virginia. John Brown believed that his uprising would inspire an all-out slave revolt. He planned on supplying the weapons from the U.S. federal arsenal. That's where the military stores its weapons. He wanted to hand them out to slaves so that they could rise up and fight their owners together. However, no slaves rushed to join his rebellion, and he and his sons-in-law were all arrested and put on trial and hanged for their crimes. All right. So we're going to make sure we get this written down for John Brown. And on the raids, 1854, attack on border ruffians coming into Kansas from Missouri to spread slavery. In 1859, he tried to start a rebellion in Virginia, raiding the federal arsenal, and he was arrested and hanged. And lastly, we have a little bit of review from 6th grade here as well. The debate over slavery reached the Supreme Court when Dred Scott and his wife Harriet, another Harriet, this is our 3rd Harriet in today's notes, they sued for their freedom. Dred Scott was a slave owned by a Southern military doctor. The doctor was then stationed by the U.S. military to be up here in Minnesota at Fort Snelling, and because the Missouri Compromise had established that Minnesota was part of free territory, when Scott's master died, he decided to go to court to fight to win his freedom, since he had been living in free territory in Minnesota. Okay, his case goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and in 1857, the Supreme Court reviewed his case, and Chief Justice Roger Taney delivered the court's decision. The court ruled 7-2 that Dred Scott and his wife could not sue for their freedom in federal court because they are not a citizen. The court also stated no African American, whether slave or free, could become a citizen. They also said the Missouri Compromise is unconstitutional. Okay, so make sure you get this written down in your notes. 1857 Supreme Court ruling established that no Black person, free or slave, was a U.S. citizen, and the Missouri Compromise is unconstitutional. This is going to come back to us later after the Civil War ends and we ban slavery. We're also going to have to make another adjustment to the Constitution to establish that Black people can be citizens. So stay tuned for that. But thanks for watching and have a